What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Luke Burke. I'm a in-person PT and an online coach, as well as a kind of hybrid of a powerlifter, runner, bodybuilder, basically just an athlete who's average at a lot of things. But yeah, first and foremost, I'm a coach and I hope this channel can be used to help educate you and sort of improve your experience within your fitness journey. Before we get into the topic of today's video, if you're interested in coaching, then link for the coaching application below, as well as my socials are there also, so make sure you follow. But yeah, let's get into it. So I'm sure you've pretty much seen the title of the video. It's 5 reasons as to how I got as strong as I did in squat, bench, and deadlift specifically. But a lot of the points I'm going to talk about in this video today can be applied to pretty much anything when it comes to strength. And just for a proof of concept, I have managed to increase my squat, bench, and deadlift quite substantially. My squat went from 185 to 222.5 kilos. Bench press went from 125 to 135. And then my deadlift went from 250 to 260. These principles I'm going to talk about today, I apply in my coaching as well. So stick around, you're getting some free value here. The first thing that really helped me and actually really pushed on my progress, I say it was one of the biggest things, is increasing my volume and my frequency. So it's pretty well established now that frequency is probably one of the most important factors when it comes to building muscle, but this also applies to strength. Repeated bouts of a certain exercise or movement across multiple sessions or days throughout the week shows significantly more progress than if you just did it once a week. It's up to 3 instances throughout the week show significantly higher rates of growth and just progression than if you did something once a week. I was guilty of this. I would squat, bench, and deadlift once per week, and I did pretty well at it. And I did pretty well with that, just doing them once a week, but I eventually hit a ceiling, and that is going to happen, especially when you're only giving your body the chance to practice, to learn, and to improve at something only once. If you apply this to anything in life, if you only practice something once per week, you're going to spend a lot of time learning that thing, and you won't give yourself the chance to really make the adaptations that you want to make. But my frequency with a lot of things, especially my bench press, went up as far as 3 or 4 times per week. And that made an insane difference to the progress I made. So increase your frequency. It is proven to work. The other one then is volume. And my volume with a lot of exercises increased dramatically. I kind of fell into the idea of low volume training. And while it does have its place, especially from a bodybuilding standpoint and just building muscle purely, from a strength standpoint, I don't think it applies as well there, specifically when you're trying to get better at a certain lift, like in my case, squat, bench, and deadlift. Much like frequency and doing things more, higher volume gives you a better chance of making sort of neural adaptations or just better skill acquisition in a much shorter space of time. If you give yourself more than just one working set in a session, or just one set in general in a session, but up that to 3, 4, 5, maybe even 6 sets at varying intensities, which I'll get into in a bit, it will just give you a better chance at getting better at that lift, while still also giving more instances where you can, push a growth stimulus. And I think trying to look for the lowest amount of work you can do possible has its benefits, but it's a slippery slope to just not doing enough. And a lot of people fall into that trap of not doing enough simply from trying to avoid fatigue at all costs. And again, I'm going to get into this further because these are further points I'm going to make. But in conclusion, with volume, increasing your volume absolutely helps with improving your strength. Absolutely. So don't skip on volume. Don't fear volume. It can have a direct effect on the progress you make. So I think this next point kind of goes smoothly on from what I was just talking about there, and that is managing fatigue. So I think that's going to be one of the main counterpoints that people might make to what I just said there earlier in terms of increasing frequency and volume quite substantially from what you might be doing already. If you increase your volume, increase your frequency substantially throughout the week, you're just going to get fatigued, and then you won't be progressing at all, and you'll just hit plateaus or get injured or go backwards. And that's a fair argument. That's where managing fatigue comes in. That's where the whole concept of load management comes in. When fatigue is high enough, when it's pushed high enough, yes, it can really negatively affect your performance. That's fair. That's common sense nearly. And I fell victim to this. I would push pretty much all of my sessions or any instance where I trained any exercise to pretty much to failure or very, very close to failure. In the short term, this produced results within the first couple of weeks. Yeah, of course, you're making results early on. I hit a plateau or a bit of a ceiling fairly quickly with this. And I found in my sessions, my body just couldn't push any further. And I was spending a much longer time in an exhausted or just fatigued state where I'd have to deload fairly quickly, or I just find things were just getting worse fairly early on. And then you just have to change your training or adjust your training when really there shouldn't have been any need for that in the first place. This is where load management comes in. Not every session needs to be max intensity, right? And I think runners get this perfectly, and powerlifters get this really well also. There can be easy sessions, and then there can be higher intensity sessions. Like, different session styles, different session objectives exist. Not every training session you do needs to be to failure, because that's the classic bodybuilder approach, where you train within 2 or 3 reps of failure. We have to understand that we're not just pushing for muscle growth, we're pushing for neural adaptation, skill acquisition, and just getting more time doing a certain thing to get better at that thing. So some of your sessions throughout the week, let's talk about bench, for instance. You might have 3 sessions with bench in it. One of them might be a variation of bench to target a certain weakness. Let it be a Larsen press where your feet are off the ground so the upper body works independently. And that doesn't need to be to failure. That can be at a lower intensity again. You can have a second session that's higher intensity, let's say, where you're working top end strength, where you're working 1 to 3 reps at a high percentage of your 1 rep max. And then a third session could be a higher amount of sets with a higher amount of reps, just to get volume in, but also practicing the skill of the bench press, getting more repetitions of the bench so you get better at benching and your body gets more adapted to the movement of the bench press, or horizontal pushing movement. But again, it's just managing the intensity of things. Again, some sessions are going to be easier, some sessions are going to be heavier. It's just about managing those and balancing those, and understanding not every session needs to be at your absolute max. Because if you do that, of course you're going to run into a fucking wall. So manage the fatigue and don't crush yourself every single session. There's no need for it, especially when the goal is to get stronger at something and to get better at a certain exercise. The third point, and this, I suppose I mentioned Larsen press earlier, which is one of these, but I'm talking about accessories now. Accessories are extremely important and often undermined. They are secondary and oftentimes tertiary movements, but that doesn't make them any less important. Generally, people will push their main lifts a lot harder, and then secondary movements, they kind of just glide through them. Powerlifters are very guilty of this. And if you actually know, they're not guilty of not training them hard, they just don't fucking do them in the first place. Do your accessories. But let me explain why you should. Accessory movements are designed to help bring up certain weaknesses that might be present within your main lift. Let it be a leg extension used to assist with your squat, because you might have weaker quads and that can show in your squatting movements. They can help with developing your strength at certain points within a lift, depending on where you're struggling to finish a rep, let's say. Whether you're struggling to lock out, or you're bottoming out, or you're just not getting out of the hole, or you're losing tightness or tension within your core. Accessories can help with that. But also, accessories are generally a lower fatigue type of movement, and they can generally be pushed a lot harder. They can almost be pushed in a sort of bodybuilding style. And that's the way they should be trained. A lot of people will, like I said, kind of just glide through them or treat them as secondary movements, but they should honestly nearly be trained harder than your main lifts most of the time, because they will be lower fatigue, and train them from a bodybuilding style approach where you're training to a high intensity, where you're like 1 to 3 reps from failure is where you're going to see the most benefit from them, because you use them to get you a bit more jacked. It'll reflect in your actual lifts, because a bigger muscle or a more jacked muscle is a stronger muscle. And because I've had more of a bodybuilding approach to my training, as you can see, you know what I'm saying? Fucking you. As I've had more of a bodybuilding approach, I've always kind of seen the benefits of accessories. I've always pushed them hard, and I think that's had a direct effect on how strong I've managed to be anyway. So I think they're well worth pushing hard, and they're well worth it's well worth your time squeezing every bit of benefit from them, because you won't do a lot of them generally, especially if your training is very powerlifting focused. You'll only have a limited amount of them, so you may as well get the absolute most out of them when you do them. The fourth point is nutrition. Now, I know everyone knows nutrition's important, but from a fueling standpoint, let me talk about it. So for this powerlifting prep, especially as I was trying to build up my strength specifically for powerlifting, I ate to perform. That was the goal. Over the years, I have ate for my physique, ate for aesthetics, to stay lean, to be shredded, to look a certain way. And that worked. I've always been relatively lean ever since I started in the gym because I ate for that one reason, to be lean and to be aesthetic and to have a nice physique. But that often led to underfueling, where I would just have low energy. And that became very apparent when I was running. So I just made sure I didn't run into this problem where I was underfueled, under-recovered, and just underperforming my sessions as a result of that. So I did increase my calories, and I kind of accepted the fact that some weight gain was kind of going to be an inevitable byproduct of that. Not saying you get fat for this to get strong. That's not necessary. Like, extra body fat is never really going to have a direct benefit to your strength unless you kind of like use your stomach to like bounce out of the bottom of a rep where you like press your stomach against your quads as you squat. Some of the heavyweight powerlifters can do that. They use that to their advantage, but that's the only real case where added body fat is of any benefit in powerlifting. Generally, everyone should be relatively lean and muscular and, you know, have visible muscle, I guess, or visible leanness to some degree. But underfueling can be a big thing when your focus is physique. So you have to understand you need to eat enough to perform and to recover. So I increased my calories from what they were. I sort of made sure I had carbs centered around my training, both before for fueling, then after for recovery. And just made sure I got enough protein in, enough fats in. But then most of the calories that most of the added calories that came into my sort of overall intake came from carbohydrates, because they are going to be the primary fuel source for performance, especially when it comes to high intensity work like lifting. But again, this still applies to the likes of running or just general strength training of any kind. Carbs are king, but also so are calories. Don't underfuel yourself. Eat plenty of food, especially if you're trying to perform to a high level. If you're someone who wants to improve their physique, of course, and improve their body composition, then going through a phase of that where that's the primary goal, then I would look at reducing calories. But if your goal is specifically getting stronger, spend some time eating slightly more food to give yourself at least an adequate amount of fuel to perform and recover. Point number 5 is get a coach. I've always kind of done things myself, figured things out for myself, and I found that was incredibly valuable. And it's something everyone can do, don't get me wrong. But I find getting a coach in this case was extremely helpful and extremely effective. And it was tangible how effective it was. You want to find a coach who is someone who's done what you want to do. Okay, that's step number 1. Find someone who's done the thing that you want to do at least a couple times in their life, just so you know they have the right experience. But the main benefit to having a coach is they ultimately will know more about the thing you're trying to do. And ideally, if they're a good coach, they will have your best interests at heart from an unbiased and objective standpoint. They will plan your training in the way that's going to work. Obviously in a way that's going to fit your life, but in a way that will actually work and not just the way you want it to be. When you program for yourself or when you coach yourself, essentially, you will make choices that are biased towards what you like, what you don't like, what you feel like doing, what you don't feel like doing. Even if you're the next David Goggins, you will make those kind of choices. A coach won't happen with a good coach. They will have a bird's eye, objective view about what you need to do, what you can do, where you're at, what your next stage is, and they will generally not let you off the hook with those things that you'll naturally skip. So getting a coach is brilliant from a programming standpoint. Obviously, it takes your mind out of it, so you just have to focus on training. The plan is already made for you. But they're also unbiased and objective in the choices that they make for you. Obviously, a good coach will sort of plan with you and let you in on why they're doing something. They won't just leave you in the dark unless that's what you want. But yeah, a coach can be very valuable because it's just unbiased, it's objective, and it has your interests at heart if they're good. All right, that is it. Those are 5 of the main reasons as to what got me so much stronger quite quickly, I'll add, only in the space of a few months. But yeah, once again, my name is Luke Burke. Thank you for watching. Thank you for jumping in and watching the video. If you want to see more like this, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and make sure to leave a like and comment. And if you want any help with coaching, application is below, link is below. So follow my socials below as well. That's enough promoting my shit. Thank you for watching, everyone, and have a great day and happy training.